we are back with our second video. In the last video we had discussed about scheduling algorithms, and among which the first scheduling algorithm is first come first serve, and we had seen various examples as well. So in this video we are going to see about shortest job first. That's your second scheduling algorithm, and so let's start with it. So the data structure that you have to use to implement this is mean heap, and the time complexity of it is n log n. And as the name suggests, shortest job first, that means the job which is having the shortest burst time will be executed first. In the first come first serve, we saw that the process which arrives first will be executed first, whereas here we are also checking with the burst time. Again, in this algorithm we have preemptive and non-preemptive. So shortest job first is your non-preemptive version, so we do not have to stop the execution of the process in middle. So let's see one simple example. So here you can see there is arrival time given and there is a burst time which is given. Again, the step 1, which we all know, that's your Gantt chart that we have to draw here. I think I forgot to write Gantt chart. Yeah, so that's all. So starting your arrival time is 0, so I'll write here 0, and at time 0 there is only one process that has arrived, that is P1, so I'll write about it P1. Now we cannot check which process is having the lowest burst time because there is only one process which has arrived at time 0, so I'll write P1 directly, and the burst time taken by P1 is 10. So you have to, since it's non-preemptive, we have to finish the execution of process P1 and then only go on to the next one. Now at time t equals 10, we have all the processes that have arrived, because at 2 time slot we have process 2, at 1 we have 2 process, at 2 we have process 3, and at time slot 3 we have process 4. So by the time it's 10, that is P1 has finished the execution, we have all the processes with us. So the next thing that we need to check here is the burst time. So the process which is having the lowest burst time, we have to consider that particular process. So in this case the process P2 is having the least burst time, so I'll consider that in the second, and its burst time is 5, so it will be 15 over here. Okay, so after P2 we have only 2 processes left, and out of which the least burst time is P3, so obviously it will go P3, and the burst time is 8, so it will be 15 plus 8, that's 23, right? And the last process that is remaining is P4, so that is what it will come here, and 23 plus 15 will be 38, right? So that's with our Gantt chart. So now we know what is your step 2. Step 2 is we have to just calculate the completion time, turnaround time, and the waiting time. Okay, so I'll just roll back till here. Okay, so completion time for process P1 is 10. Sorry. For process P2 the completion time is 15. For process P3 the completion time is 23, and process P4 the completion time is 38. Okay, so turnaround time, if you all remember the turnaround time, we calculated it by subtracting the completion time minus the arrival time. So completion time minus arrival time, so I'm getting this as 10 minus 0 is 10, 15 minus 1 is 14, 23 minus 2 is 21, and 38 minus 3 is 35. Right, now next is waiting time. So waiting time was turnaround time minus the burst time, so it is 0. Next 14 minus 5 is 9, 21 minus 8 is 13, and lastly we have 35 minus 15, that's 20. Simple enough. So any algorithm you take, the only focus should be on the Gantt chart, and how you draw it and how accurately you draw it, because the rest all steps are same in every algorithm, right? So here now average turnaround time will be addition of all this divided by 4, so approximately we are getting it as 20, and average waiting time will be 0 plus 9 plus 13 plus 20 divided by 4. So I'll just write it down here, if in case you have not watched my previous video. 0 plus 9 plus 13 plus 20, that's all, divided by 4, so that is giving me 10.5, right? So simple enough. So we'll just go for the next problem now. Okay, now we have our next problem here. Again, it's a simple problem, I guess. It looks simple. So here if you can see, the arrival time is given. Now how is it different from the previous problem is that the arrival time given here is starting with 1. Until now, whichever problems we have solved, we have taken arrival time to be 0, and I would suggest specifically, rather than, even if it is given in the question, do not write the arrival time starting with 1, always write starting with 0. Now if I am writing, as I told, if I am writing it as starting from 0, then what are we supposed to show from 0 to 1? You have to just, neglect that first slot and directly start 1 from here. Okay, so it's starting from 0 and then till 1 there is nothing that is happening, so I'll just keep it blank, there is nothing happening, and then we are starting it from 1 here, so that there is no confusion. This is the only reason that we are not confused while solving different problems. If arrival time is 1 or if it is 0, then there could be a lot of confusion, so we don't want to fall into all that. So we are starting it with 0 and keeping the first slot blank. So at the time slot 1 we have process 1, so there is nothing else to be compared it with, so we are directly putting P1 here. Okay, and the burst time is 7, so definitely this will become 8, right? So next, at time slot 8 we have all the processes with us. Okay, so now we have to compare which process is having the shortest burst time. Okay, so now process 2, 3, 4, 5 are already arrived, and which one of this is having the shortest burst time? So P3 is having the shortest burst time, if you can see here. So the next process that will go in will be your P3, and the burst time for P3 is 1, so it will become 8 plus 1, that's 9. I hope you are following what I'm saying. So let's see the next example. So since all the processes are there, I will not go according to the P numbers, because in shortest job first we have to check for the burst time. So I'll check for the next shortest burst time, that's your 2, and that is with the process P4, so it will be P4 over here. So 9 plus 2 will give me 11, right? So that's your completion time here. So after this, now for your simplicity, I can just make this as red, because this is already done and this is also done. So in your paper you can just tick mark for the processes that are already done if you are getting confused. So now which are remaining with us are only P2 and P5, and out of which is having the shortest burst time is your P2. So I'll just write here it has P2, so it will be 11 plus 5, that will be here 16. And the next one, that is the final process that is pending, is your P5, so I'll just put it here. So that gives me 16 plus 8 is 24, right? So that completes my Gantt chart here. Now I will try to fill up this table, that is completion time, turnaround time and waiting time. So you have to be careful here while filling the completion time, because your processes are not in sequence. So you have to find out which process is where and accordingly fill it, because mostly students make mistake while filling the table looking at the Gantt chart. Although they draw the Gantt chart correctly, but they in the hurry or whatever confusions during the exams, they just think that the processes are in sequence and they fill the wrong completion times. So the completion time for P1 here, if you can see, it is 8. Next we have for P2 it is, I think, where is that P2, it's 16. Okay, P3 it is 9, P4 it is 11, correct, and I think I can just get this, P5 we have is 24, right? So now turnaround time is easy to calculate because completion time minus the arrival time is your turnaround time, so that's, I'll directly write it as 7. 16 minus 2 is 14, and then comes 6, right, 7, and lastly we have 19. So next is your waiting time. So waiting time, turnaround time minus the burst time, so it is 0. 14 minus 5 is 9, 6 minus 1 is 5, 7 minus 2 is again 5, and lastly 19 minus 8 is 11. So now it's simple to calculate average turnaround time and average waiting time. So average turnaround time is approximately 10.6, and average waiting time, is addition of all this divided by 5, we are getting it to be 6. Okay, so that's all. Let's move on to the next problem. So assuming that you have understood the problems, so I can just move a little bit faster because we have to finish at least one more problem in this video. The next problem that is given to us is this, and not having any arrival time. So if you remember in the previous video also, I had told you if there is no arrival time given, we are assuming that all the processes have arrived at 0 and at the same time. So definitely we are going to start it with 0. So directly in shortest job first, we are not going for P numbers, we are going for the burst time, if whichever is having the lesser burst time. So I think it should be P4, and the burst time is 2, right? Next we have is P2. So burst time is 3, so 2 plus 3 is 5, right? Next what we have is P3. So 5 plus 6 is 11, and lastly we have P1, that's 21, right? So 11 plus 21 is 32, right? So next we'll do the completion time and turnaround time and waiting time. So again here the processes are not in sequence, so you should be careful while filling completion time. So completion time for P1 is 32. Next we have for P2 it's 5, for P3 it's 11, and for P4 it's 2. So we'll just move on to the turnaround time. So turnaround time here is, since the arrival time is 0, whatever is your completion time, the same thing will be your turnaround time because everything is minused with 0. Okay, and waiting time here will be this turnaround time minus the burst time. So 32 minus 21 is 11, 5 minus 3 is 2, 11 minus 6 is 5, and 2 minus 2 is 0, right? So average turnaround time approximately we are getting here is 12.5, and waiting time is 4.5. Kindly cross check the answers in case if I made any mistakes here. Okay, so we'll move on to the next problem. The next problem that we are having here is having burst time and arrival time, both are given. The difference between this problem and the previous problems, whatever we have seen till now, is that arrival times, you can see they are not in sequence. So you have to find out which process has come at what time. Clearly it should be clear in your mind like which process has come, and no messing up with the arrival times here. But my Gantt chart will always start with 0. So at time 0, which processes have arrived, that is your P4 which has arrived. So I have to place here P4 because there is no competition with P4 here, and the burst time is 3. So be little accurate while reading the numbers that are given. So burst time is 3 here, right? So at time slot 3, how many processes have arrived. So we are done with this process, so I'll just mark it red. So at time slot 3 we have this process, we have P1, we have P3, right? We have two processes, so there is a competition between P1 and P3. So burst time, and check the burst times. So burst time for P1 is 6 and P3 is 8, so obviously we have to go with P1 here. Okay, and P1's burst time is 6, so it becomes plus 3. 6 plus 3 is 9, right? So next at time slot 9 we have all the processes which have arrived, so there is no more confusion, all the processes are in the competition right now. So we have to see about the burst time. So burst time, the process having the least burst time is P2, so I'll place P2 here, and its burst time is 2, so 9 plus 2 is 11, so even this is done. Next we have is P3 and P5. So list burst time is of P5, so I'll put P5 here, and its burst time is 4, so this will become 15. Okay, and lastly what we have here is P3, right? So P3, so P3 burst time is 8, so 15 plus 8 is 23. So this is an extra one, so maybe by mistake it's been done. Okay, so that's all. So now we have to fill the table. I hope you have understood. So first we have to check for the arrival time and then see the burst times. Okay, so once this is done, now I'll fill the completion time. Again, be careful while filling the completion time because processes are not in sequence. So for P1 the completion time is 9. For P2 the completion time is here, it's 11. For P3 the completion time is here, that's 23. For P4 the completion time is here, that's 3. And for P5 the completion time is here, that's 15. Right? So now turnaround time is completion time minus the arrival time. So now you can see here 9 minus 2. Again here you should be careful while doing these calculations because it's not 0 here, it's 9 minus 2, that is 7. Here it's 11, here it's 5, so 11 minus 5 it's 6. Here it's 23, here it's 1, so it's 22. Here it's 3 minus 0, so it is 3, and it's 15 minus 4, that's 11. Right? So next one is your waiting time. So waiting time is turnaround time minus the burst time. So 7 minus 6 is 1, 6 minus 2 is 4, 22 minus 8, 14. Next we have 3 minus 3, that's 0, and 11 minus 4, that's 7. Right? So then we have to calculate the average. That's all. Turnaround time 7 plus 6 plus 22 plus 3 plus 11 divided by 5 is giving me 9.8. Yes. And waiting time 1 plus 4 plus 14 plus 0 plus 7 divided by 5 is giving me 5.2. Right? So that's all. I have one homework question for you. It's very simple question. You please solve it because I think I have covered almost all the different types of questions that can come in shortest job first in a different tricky way to confuse the students. So we have tried covering all of those. Hope you like the video. Please subscribe my channel. Thank you.